Hey, how's it going, Nostalgics? Welcome back to another video on the Nostalgia Factor. Today, guys, we're going to be taking a look at Yugioh GX Spirit Caller, released back in 2007 by Konami. And this, guys, is going to be a very different Yu-Gi-Oh game because I've reviewed a lot of games in the past, such as the 3 5Ds games and a number of the GBA titles from the Yu-Gi-Oh series. But this one's a little different for me personally because while it does, story-wise, it loosely follows the first season of the GX anime, for those of you who have watched that, this is a very different game in many aspects, not just with the core Yu-Gi-Oh gameplay, but we're talking in terms of traversal, story progression, and it does a lot of questionable things in terms of the gameplay and exploration, but we'll get into it here. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Spirit Caller is an alright one, but we'll kind of explain that a little bit more as the video goes. What's going to end up being a recurring theme here with Spirit Caller, right off the bat when we're talking about the visuals and the soundtrack of the game, this is more of a bare bones Yu-Gi-Oh game when it comes to the visuals. The visuals look fine for a DS title in a Yu-Gi-Oh game. You have an overworld view of Duel Academy Island, some basic screenshots where you get to travel to different locations across the map to progress the day-night cycle they have implemented when you're outside of class and you have free time in the evening to go and duel opponents, or you're trying to make story progression, going all the way up until the Shadow Riders arc. The visuals look fine. Again, you have an overworld view. It looks basic. It's fine enough. You have some cool looking backgrounds representing iconic locations from the GX series. The duels themselves look as good as ever. I mean, I can't really add anything new in terms of the visuals for the duels, because I'll just be repeating myself from the 5Ds reviews. The monster animations look fine, the card animations when you're actually dueling. The game as a whole looks fine. It's not as impressive looking as the 5Ds games in terms of character models, or the duel animations, or the overworld, or anything else. This game is just kind of lacking in all those areas, and it's just okay. And the soundtrack, once again, compared to some of the bangers that I highlighted in Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, whether it be the duel themes, the duel runner chases, or quite frankly, any other area you explore in the game, there's not really any notable soundtracks in this game either in terms of songs. The OST in this game is fine. The duel theme, for instance, is fine enough. It gets you action. It gets you in that action-packed mood to want to actually engage in a duel, but there's not really anything here in terms of the soundtrack either, to be honest. The visuals and soundtrack are fine. They're serviceable for a Yu-Gi-Oh game, but they're not really anything worth discussing. They're just really basic. Story in Spirit Caller goes around the first actual season of the GX anime, basically covering the beginning when you make it to Duel Academy Island, all the way up until the end when you defeat all the Shadow Riders and eventually enter a tournament where you fight Jaden at the end. This story here, for the events that you actually get to participate in, are extremely basic. Basic dialogue, not really a ton of character interactions with the main cast of GX. You are participating in these Season 1 events, but they're not really anything notable. There's no build-up, there's no tension, there's no anything, because you're traveling around a hub world-based map where you don't even get to thoroughly explore like you did in the 5Ds games. Events just kind of happen. And the biggest problem with the story, outside of being just a basic recreation with little to no interaction of the first season of the GX anime, is that the story progression in this game isn't very good whatsoever, because you'll be spending days upon days in-game just traveling around random areas of the island, dueling the same opponents over and over again just to waste time to progress to the next day. Sometimes you don't even know if there's a clear-cut direction you need to take in order to progress the story, because you'll be wandering around for months on end in-game, doing the same things over and over again, waiting for the next story event to roll around. And it's pretty random when these occurrences happen. When a marker appears on your hub map, you travel to that, and then guess what? You're in the next part of the story. It's incredibly random, drug out, and the story itself isn't very interesting whatsoever, again, being a recreation of the GX anime, but the fact that it takes so long to progress going through the plot, it just nothing happens. It gets repetitive, boring, and the story is as base level as you can get, even for a Yu-Gi-Oh plot. The story in Spirit Caller isn't the worst story I've ever experienced, because it is based off a pretty good season of the anime, but the execution of it in this game, not that good. Continuing the trend when it comes to Spirit Caller, see, I haven't really had a lot of positives throughout this video thus far when it comes to the storytelling, visuals, pacing, music, or anything else. But you're probably thinking to yourselves, I've had similar opinions on games in the past, but the gameplay has really helped save them. Well, in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh games, the gameplay system is the exact same thing that I've talked about in all the 5Ds reviews, for a recent example, because the dueling mechanics work the exact same way. You visit card shops, you buy decks, you assemble your spells, your monsters, and traps, you challenge various opponents on the dual world map, as well as the various opponents throughout the story mode. You have a base battlefield, and you have some pretty base rules, tributing monsters, summoning them, assembling a number of strategies from Generation 2 and back of Yu-Gi-Oh! I mean, it's pretty basic. There's nothing really special about the duels. There's nothing special about any of the arenas. It's basic summoning, sacrificing, attacking your opponent to deplete their life points. If you guys have watched any of the 5Ds reviews that I've done where I've described the gameplay, this is the exact same thing, only it's not as advanced or polished, since this is Gen 2 of Yu-Gi-Oh! And 5Ds is Gen 3. And there's no extra features or anything like the dual runner races or speed duels or anything else. This is as base level of Yu-Gi-Oh! As you can get. And to some people, that'll be fine. The dueling mechanics are good all in all for what they are, but there's nothing innovative about it, there's nothing really special, and combined with repetitively going through the exact same opponents to progress the already bland and slow story, I mean, what you see is what you get. If you enjoy base Yu-Gi-Oh! Like a World Championship style game where you're just dueling people all the time, you'll enjoy it, but if we're talking in terms of actually playing it through the game, the dueling's fine, it's good, it's as base level Yu-Gi-Oh! As you can get, but in all honesty, it's just kinda there. Nothing really special about it, and again, the fact that you have to go through these duels multiple times while progressing an insanely slow story, it just doesn't help things. I have to say about Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Spirit Caller, guys. Not gonna lie on this one, when I played this when I was a kid, I enjoyed it, I think, more than what I do now, just because I was a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and I'm a big fan of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Games, because there have been a lot of good ones, like I've talked about with Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, or Chef of Destruction, or Sacred Cards to a degree. But GX Spirit Caller, looking back on it now, and even when I was younger playing it, it's an incredibly slow game, and it has a lot of issues with it. This is not the ideal Yu-Gi-Oh! Game that I can really recommend, with a slow, drawn-out story, repetitive dueling, not really any innovative gameplay, not really visually or musically standing out, it just kind of being there. It's not the worst game I've ever played, but I wouldn't call it good either. This is a mediocre or okay Yu-Gi-Oh! Title that maybe you can pick up and play for a little bit if you're a fan of the GX games or you're curious to try it out as a long-time or newcomer to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. But at the end of the day, I can't really recommend this one as a massive, like, oh yeah, you should drop everything to go play this one. Because this game just isn't really there, with all the issues I've described throughout this video. It just doesn't do anything special, and it has a lot of issues. Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Spirit Caller is all in all an okay game. Not one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh! Games made by any means. Not a horrible game by any means either, but it's just okay. If you want to go and check out this one on the Nintendo DS, absolutely feel free. Maybe you'll get some more enjoyment out of it, but at the end of the day, it is a bland recreation of the GX Season 1 anime, and that's really all it is. Another Yu-Gi-Oh! License game. Doesn't really stand out like a lot of the other ones I've talked about, so. But yeah, that's Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Spirit Caller. It's alright. And that concludes it for this review today, guys. This is one that I've been actually wanting to cover on the channel for a little bit. After I finished up the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds games, I was kind of going through what I wanted to talk about, and I figured, well, I've enjoyed doing Yu-Gi-Oh! Reviews here on the channel, but Spirit Caller is one that I really don't see talked about much here on YouTube regardless, similarly to some other games I've covered here in the past, but at the end of the day, this one really isn't anything too special or stand out like some of the other ones I've talked about, so. But yeah, I kind of wanted to get this one out of the way because it's one I played growing up, and looking back, yeah, it's there, it's alright. So, that being said though, let me know what you guys think about Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Spirit Caller in the video in the comment section down below. Have you played this game? Do you enjoy it? Do you agree or disagree with what I've said? Is there any other games I should be keeping an eye out on to play here on the channel to review? Let me know your thoughts and feelings in the comment section down below. Give the video a like if you did enjoy it, and subscribe to the channel to keep up on not just obscure game reviews like we do here on the channel, but any vlogs, collaborations, or other gaming-related videos that we do here when I get the chance. Otherwise, thank you guys once again for checking this video out, and until next time, I will see you nostalgics in the next one, and keep on gaming.